All right, so today, like I mentioned before, we're going to be discussing how to deconstruct a website. This is something that will really set you apart as far as a user if you can understand the components of a website. We're going to be discussing the different components and then using the HTML to build an agent and using our background knowledge of the components of a website to build our agent and see how it changes the building experience. Then we're going to be discussing some troubleshooting techniques as far as getting really good information, and if you hit an error inside the web console or while you're building, some things we can do to navigate around that. The purposes by the end of our time together, you'll understand the different components of a website and how to troubleshoot website nuances, whether it's the way that it's formatted, the styling, the JavaScript, or even just the request of a web page. So to begin with, we're going to talk about the front end. This is what makes a website look great and is easy to interact with. The front end consists of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there is some Ajax in there, but that's more on the back end as well. But with HTML, this is the most fundamental building block of a web page. Everything that you can use Mozenda for, extracting data, involves HTML in some way. So understanding how HTML is structured and how it works is fundamental to understanding how to use Mozenda effectively. This is similar with XML. If you've heard XML and HTML, you can think of them as cousins. They have similar rules governing their structure and their format, and we can use a lot of the same tools like the XPath, but in the HTML, that is the content of your web page. This is an example of a very rudimentary HTML document. If you note, it starts with the document type, it's HTML. Then HTML has an opening tag and a closing tag. The main focus of presenting this to you guys is so that we understand that there's a hierarchy in the HTML format. Head is apparent to title. Body is apparent to H1 and P. So understanding that if we selected this higher node or element, I would also be selecting these inner nodes will help us when we're collecting data. Because in Mozenda, when we hover over different pieces of data or different aspects of our website, we're actually hovering over these elements in our HTML. And so being able to identify where that node of data would be located will help us build more effectively. We have CSS, which is the style. This defines the layout of your website and how these elements are displayed. This comes down to alignment, font, or color. In this example down here, this is having the text alignment be centered. You can also have change the background color so it reflects blue or orange or any colors you want. And when you combine both HTML and CSS together, the browser converts that into a beautiful website that we view and we're able to get our information from. When we are working with websites, we also have the element of JavaScript. This is the interactive elements where there's a drop-down menu, a mobile window, or a contact form. I like this example with Best Buy because you can see that movement in the pause button and then it changes. So that's JavaScript. Whenever you see something interactive on your web page, how those just loaded, that's JavaScript. JavaScript can be used on the front end or the back end of websites. So now, oops, I clicked on it once again. So with our JavaScript, we combine those all together. We can actually have a view of the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript through our dev tools, and we'll dive into that here in just a minute. We talked about the front end, and now we have the back end. This is the behind the scenes, like the server side or the database. This is where all the data is stored and organized so that the front end can run smoothly. I love this example of a cupcake shop. If I have a cupcake shop and I'm just starting out and I want to build a simple web page, but I just want to present information to them so that they know that I'm a real business and I'm established. I want them to know who I am, so I'm going to give them a little description or a paragraph. I'm going to tell them my location, the hours, contact, and the email that they can contact me with. Right now, my customers wouldn't be able to interact with much of this at all. I'm just presenting information to them. But if I wanted to make a dynamic website, I could add a location search bar where they're looking for my flavors of the month or the location that I'm at, if I'm in my northern location or my southern location. And dynamic websites allow users to set an input, and when they search for that, it searches in the backend to see if anything matches and displays that for you. Knowing that there are requests that are going from both the website to the database will help us understand that it is a living machine that we're working with, but we can control some of those requests. I mentioned we have these developer tools where we can do a range of things from viewing the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, but we can also see what has been requested from specific pages and how long it took for that page to load. So we're going to look at MBA.com. We're going to right click and click inspect. Right here, I'm viewing all of my HTML document. Over here on the far right, I have my style. If I want to know how long or which requests are going to the database, I can click on network. So when I click on schedule, it's processing a lot of information. You can see all of those requests, how many seconds it took, where it came from, where was its main source, was it something that was just already loaded in, was it something that was pulled from my last visit to nba.com, what is it? I can also see if there's any JavaScript, CSS, any images specifically, media, if there's specific font. Where this comes handy is if there are all these requests coming into our web page, and as we're building our agents, if we decide that if we really don't need all these images loaded, we can block them so that instead of having these photos being loaded and having that take more time, we can actually remove that as an option. And we'll go through that together today. Those are called navigation requests. And as we're going to build a simple agent with Best Buy where we look at the different elements of the HTML and then apply this request blocking to see how that affects how quickly we get our data, as well as if we can get it in a more clean way. So let's pull up our agent builder. And I'm just going to put in Best Buy, and we're going to do cameras. So I'm putting my URL. And as that loads, I'm going to click Start a New Agent from this page. Again, we're using the Chromium version, so if you haven't had an opportunity yet, go ahead and click File, Settings, and enable your beta browser. We're going to build an agent where we're going to get a brand of the product, so the product type, the price, as well as the model number, and click into it. So we're going to start with our website and kind of scope it out, because I know that I don't want any of this information, so I'm going to ignore it. And I don't want this first option because this is a Nest camera and I want an actual camera. So I'm going to start here, get the price and click into it. If I click in here, I'm sure I could get the model as well. And it's up here at the top. So we'll get it. We'll just start there. So I'm going to create a list of items. So I click Capture List. Scroll down pretty far just so I can create a pattern, and I'm going to do product name. Then I want to capture the price. And I'm providing a field name of price. And we're going to click here. So now we have our product loaded. And for more information, we're just going to capture some more of the specifications. Because there's this drop-down tab I want to see, I'm going to hold either Control Q or just Q, and that will open up more. Typically. I opened up the ratings and reviews, so that's a trick that you can apply with your own agent building. If there's something you want to click inside the web page, then you can hold Q, press the arrow, and then it will open. You'll notice that the web page hasn't changed much since I loaded this new information. So to me, that tells me that this information is already present in the web page and it doesn't require a new URL to load that. I'm looking at my request blocking. That was the navigation request tab. And I'm seeing that I have 204 items being loaded on this one web page. Those red ones are ones being blocked. So we're going to play around with having them blocked versus not blocked. I'm going to go to File, Settings. This is where we can enable request blocking. I recommend building with the standard level 1 because this just blocks any ads or analytics. For example, if I click on my request blocking, there'll be some predetermined request blocking expressions listed in here if there's something custom we wanted to block. Say it was just the JavaScript, the styling, images, media, or font. Right now we're going to block the CSS, which is the styling, and we're going to test our agent. Notice the way that the website looks now. It looks fairly ugly and is just a document with bullet points and hyperlinks. So our CSS is not affecting the way that our agent runs. It's still getting all the data it needs. It's just not as pretty, but we applied it after we built what we needed and we're still able to get the information. That's one way you can speed up the time of your agents. I'm going to go back to my request blocking and I'm going to clear all and save it because I want to still work through my website in the original format. I clicked refresh and it brought it back to the original state. We're going to build it out a little bit more because additionally, the goal is that we can use our knowledge with the HTML to build a more robust agent without using XPath, but still having a very reliable agent. So on this page 1, we captured the price. I'm going to capture the number of reviews, and that's highlighted light green. So I'm going to capture this and have this be total reviews. And then for the star rating, we're really lucky because the star rating is in text. So I'm going to capture this text of star rating. And we are going to have it go to the next page. By adding a page list. This page list goes to about 100 pages. For me, I only want the first 5 pages because as a competitor, I just want to know the top listed cameras of what's being listed on my competitor's site. So I'm going to limit my page list by right-clicking, selecting properties, and selecting the list processing. I'm going to say only click that next button 3 times. Then click save. So now I'm going to go to page 4 before it stops. We're already going into our product details, and in our product details we have the capability of getting images. We can get more specifications. We now have an overview here, so I'm going to definitely get some of this information. We're going to start with these images, and I want to download an image. And download this one. These will all be packaged in a zip file once I do my harvesting. I also want to get, let's see if there's some more specifications. I want to get the effective megapixels. So I'm going to capture this text and do effective megapixels. Something to note is we could use that name value pairs where we capture this value versus this value to see how that, so that it's always associated with that first. I'm checking my capture text preview to make sure it's all looking nicely. And then I'm going to get, let's get the ISO. If I wanted all of this, that could be a possibility as well. I talked about how when you are on a website in Mozenda, when we hover over the green and it highlights in green, that's showing like a node of data. So in this specific example, if I hover over this paragraph, it's getting the description. But then when I hover over the entire box, I'm going to be getting more information. So I'm going to say it's not a price or an address. This is just an example. So from my description tab before, I was just capturing Sony Alpha A6000 mirrorless camera. But now in my example, I'm capturing the word description and it's capturing everything in this box. We don't want all of that, so I'm going to remove this. But it will come back into play when we're working with our list. With our list, it's currently just building a path or filter to find the title. And if we were having any troubles finding this exact location, we could start and reassign our product list to go find a box that is find the container where our camera, our product name, the model number, SKU number, as well as the price is all stored in. And so what that would do is just create a focal point for our data to look for, the harvesters to look for. So I'd be finding each one of these. I'd say look for this container, and if you find a container that looks similar, then that's what I want you to select. Then we could go through and we would have to reassign each one of these. One of the benefits of having it be building it based off of its container rather than just the title of the product is that if the format changes at all, you have it based off of the container rather than like a minute detail of that item. And we'll go through this more tomorrow. So I'm going to reassign these locations. And it's saying this still isn't found. So we're going to test our agent and see where that is. So let's start over. So it wasn't able to find price. Let's see where it wasn't finding price. And right here, it looks like it's found see more options. So we're going to just change this location one more time so that it is based off of the product name. I'm going to reassign that to here. And reassign the product. And reassign the total reviews. And the star rating. So let's test this again. So this one doesn't have an image 3. So we can set this as optional and say that, okay, I know that this won't have a third image, so we can just keep it as optional. We're going to save this one and actually run it in the web console. My goal is that it will hit an error because we do want to walk through some ways that we can troubleshoot altogether. So it's getting that data really nicely. And this is just using the point and click like we practiced yesterday to build a simple agent. Something to help us, our agent is working well. If I wanted to make sure that everything was working, I'd let it run the entire span. What I do want to do is see if I want to get the URL of this item right here. Because if I want to refer back to that product, it would be easier for me to load a URL versus go through the list and search for that exact item. So the easiest way to do that is I could try and capture this URL up here, but I got here by clicking on that URL. So we're going to go behind the scenes to see if there is a URL there that we can load or gather. So I right-clicked and clicked inspect, and it says, okay, there is an A tag there, and it has a URL. If I want to test this URL to see if it is the one that I'm looking for, you can just copy it and then load it inside another browser. And it looks like it's using site as a reference code to load, use Best Buy, the site, and add on top of that. So I'm going to add bestbuy.com. Didn't like me this time. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I still want this URL regardless of how it interacted with me in a different browser. So I'm going to capture it by going behind the scenes and refining it to only show me that URL. It's located right underneath this header. I know that because when I right-clicked and inspected, it showed the URL right there. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to capture this text again, and I'm going to be calling it the product URL. So when I save that and look at my capture text preview, I'm still just getting the name that matches the product name. So we're going to go behind the scenes and click on Refine Capture Text. Instead of just viewing the text, I want to view what's being called in the background. And that is going to be the HTML. And there's our www.bestbuy.com. So it looks like it just needed to add a little bit more. We can add a landmark so that it can find this URL. With websites, it's typically, I would say 98% of the time, just writing href equals and then a quotes will help you find that URL. This is so great when you're trying to follow your tracks if you go to multiple websites throughout your agent. So I saved my URL, and now I have a URL being displayed. I'm going to save this. It's asking me if I want to view what I'm blocking as far as website requests. And right now it's blocking any insights. So I'm going to save those and then save this once again. And we're going to do Best Buy. And I would like to show you guys additionally how it would work if we cranked up the settings on each website to our level 4 request blocking, and how that can benefit you when you have a website that may be hard to scrape. So I'm going to load in a new URL. This one, you'll notice it said this will require premium harvesting. And as that's loading, let's see, we'll just do File New. So this is gathering information. This is another use case that you can apply. In this specific website, when I start an agent from this page, I want to get the list of names. And I want to go through every single page that's listed here. So I can do a page list and say, go through all of these, but you'll notice that when I added this page list, it didn't add a page 2. I'm curious if any of you guys have had that as well, where you've added a page list and it hasn't registered it as a new page. So there's a couple things that could be going on. It could be that that we need a specific URL to load each one of these pages and Next won't do it. It could be also that the data is all stored on one page, and that the website is just changing the view that we have of the information. So we're going to get a little bit more information so that our our agent can be a little bit more robust. I'm going to say we want the city, and you'll notice the city is not in my list. So I'm going to drag this in my list because I want it for everything. It didn't recognize it, so I'm going to use my trick again to reassign and choose there. See, it still didn't like it. Those are good things. Whenever something doesn't work, that is such a good thing because now you know that you can do something different to get better data. I'm going to click this item and put that in our list, and then here ooh, this one is a really ugly site. I'm sure you guys have come across this as well, where it comes out sometimes when you're going to a next page, it takes forever to load or it's having a really hard time. But for our example here, we're going to just get the name and we're going to crank up our request blocking to see how it changes the format. So I'm going to do go to File, Settings, and level 1 is blocking ads. I'm going to do level 2, which is blocking any third-party requests, meaning if it doesn't have the same URL that I started with, it's going to block it. So we can see right now, it only blocked 2 items. I'm viewing 33 out of 35 items. So I'm going to test this and see what happens. So it used 3 credits and it got all of the A names. But I want not just the ones on the front page, I want all of the names because I'm greedy like that. I need all of them. So we're going to go to File, Settings, make it event driven, saying that only once my document is loaded, then give me all the information back. So I'm going to test this once again. Still the same thing. So we're going to, I want to see if we can remove all this pretty stuff and see if that changes the layout of the information. And even if I go, because when I click on this next button, I'm looking at my navigation requests, holding Q, nothing is changing. So let's turn it so that almost everything's blocked. So I want to block JavaScript, images, font, media, and save that. Then I also want to come to my settings and take this to level 4. A lot of times when I'm building my agent, I will move this to level 4, see if it breaks, then move down each level until it's running pretty quickly. So now when I test my agent, the format has changed and all of the names are listed here. So I don't have, let's see, more than 100, I should close, yeah, to 500 results, because the website was only displaying to me what I wanted. It was saying only show these our audience 50 people at a time. But if I looked, all of this information that I wanted is visible if I block the pretty stuff, the CSS and the navigation requests. So now instead of 35, I'm having 3 requests out of 32. So whenever you're having an issue with these agents, I always recommend just adding some request blocking in to see if it changes the format of your website, and maybe the list is visible for you to see and you can extract that data. We're going to jump in to our agent builder or our web console, and we're going to go to all of our agents, and we're going to go to our Best Buy. When we run an agent, there's different settings to look for. We're going to spend a whole day just dedicated to these settings. But for this example, I want to make sure that my error handling is set to stop when it hits an error and stop when a website error occurs so that I can go in and fix it. Then I'm going to run this agent. It's going to be queued and then it's going to start running. When I first start harvesting information, I'm in the view harvesting results. If I want to view the data coming in, then I need to click on this refresh button. And as it gathers data, then that information will show. But let's talk about errors. Whenever our agents hit an error, because they will, how do we handle it? How do we troubleshoot it? Because for me, I don't have all the time, and so I just raise my hand and I say, help, I need you to fix this, please help me. And I don't even know where to begin, at least when I was first starting to use Mozenda. And I felt like it was hard for me to identify where the error was happening, and I didn't have enough experience looking at agents day in and day out and looking at all of the errors that are happening. So I didn't know where to even start. And as I became more familiar with it, I realized Mozenda tells you exactly where the error is at, and it's just taking the time to look at it. So I've outlined some steps for you guys to use when you do hit an error, because it is so frustrating. We're getting good data, we're on a roll, and then it just stops, or the data doesn't come out clean. And that doesn't make me feel good, and I hope, well, I'm sure it doesn't make you guys feel good either. So when we're troubleshooting, first we need to identify where the error is. Where is it even located? And then look to see if anything has changed on the website. And don't worry, because I'm going to show you where to look to identify where the error has hit. And so if you're like, yeah, I know I need to look for these, that's okay if you don't know how, because it takes some practice, but we'll do it today. So you'll look at your website and compare it to see if anything has changed once you've identified where that has occurred. Then, once we've spent some time in the web console looking at where the error has occurred, where it stopped getting data, then we can go into the builder and reassign or redefine that location to see if that will fix it. And then from there, write a custom XPath. XPath is a filter for you to get that information pretty clean and get there quickly. And it's outside of a lot of people's comfort zone, but it is awesome once you feel comfortable with it. So having that redefined resource ahead of that will help you as far as troubleshooting. So when your agent hits an error, you will be notified, and you can be notified inside the web console. So look for, this is my agent dashboard, and I can see that, oh, there's an error. It will tell me the day and the time it stopped. And it even says an item could not be found on the page. When I hover over that I, it will give me more insight into what happened. And when I first started using Mozenda, I just thought, that's great. But I don't know how to open that and like truly identify what's happening. But you guys are power users. You guys know what actions you have added into your agent to build, and you know the capabilities, the format of your website. So that's going to set you apart when you look at these. Once you've identified that it is in an error state, choose from this drop-down the word jobs. Select the job that hit an error, and you'll have these error codes and messages that are available for you. Additionally, you'll have some job statistics that will let you know if the element was not found, if there was, and it won't always be element not found. It will tell you different errors that have occurred so that you can have an idea of what you're looking at before you even open up your agent. the restart index is helpful if you have URLs or items that you're loading in. It will say on item number 2, item number 3, and tell you the exact item that you had an error on, which is so nice. So we've looked here, we have identified that we have an element not found error, and it even gave me the XPath, and they're saying, okay, it's on the program structure. So I know what to do. So now I'm going to open the builder. When I open up the builder, we're going to reassign the location and add an alternate location. So let's go through that with one of our examples. So we're going to refresh this. Oh, it's still having a little hiccup. Let's see. We'll open up one of the past agents that I've built, and we can test it on there as well. And we'll walk through how to identify that and walk through getting that error. So you can see this is in an error state. So I'm selecting my agent. It says the error right there. I can resume it, I can cancel it, or I can even edit the agent all from here. When I hover over this I, it gives me the exact XPath, and it says it was not found on page 2. So I know that this is going to be on page 2 of my agent. When I select jobs from the dropdown, you'll notice there are no job statistics. So I'm going to select that, and it will give me more information about my agent and the job that was run. I'm making sure I can view my error code. I'm minimizing credits, downloads, items, page, and processes just so I can view this error information. And it will say, okay, it's still on the list program and the program structure list. So now I can go into my agent and identify exactly where that error was found. We're going to open up let's check back on our Best Buy agent. If you guys haven't used this bookmark, it is phenomenal. The most recent items that you viewed, you can refer back to. One of the most common questions we get is when an agent should run really, really fast inside the web console, faster than what's happening in the agent builder, because it's actually running on our harvesters and we're making it as lean as possible to get our information. Sometimes we come into a case where the agent may be running faster inside the builder than it is on the web console, and it's so slow and it's hitting errors that you haven't hit before, and you've tried all these troubleshooting, but it's not working. So something that you can do is add some wait seconds. And as it sounds counterintuitive, but when you open up your agent and you see if there's more information that needs to be loaded, there's a few tricks you can do so that you can slow our harvesters down so that it interacts like it does in the builder, and it will give some more time for that to load. So if you ever hit that error where you're like, okay, this is not working in the web console, but it worked in the builder, here are some tips to try. On page 1, I double-clicked on that, so opened up more settings. Or you can right-click and click Properties. But after loading this page, you can select Wait for Ajax. Ajax is a technique for creating fast and dynamic web pages. It allows for web pages to be updated and by exchanging like small amounts of data behind the scenes. So it makes it possible for you to update parts of the web page without reloading the entire screen. So if it's running slow, click on Wait for Ajax. This is deselected by default because sometimes you don't need it and it will make your agent run faster. Then we can click Save and we'll test it and see if it works. So we'll test this. This is a realtor. We'll go through this more later in the week. This as one of our examples. But it's one of my dreams. I need to have a house in France. So I'm still able to get the information. It hasn't really affected the way that it's harvesting here inside the builder, but when we test it inside the web console, this could make a difference. Additionally, I can go back into my properties, and after loading this page, I can say wait up to, let's say if we want it to wait up to 50 seconds or 45. Then before I start getting my data, it's going to make sure everything is loaded before pulling that information. So if you know that it takes a long time for your web page to load while you're manually working with it, then this will adding those wait seconds in there. And even if you want to do like just hard wait seconds where no matter what, it has to wait 10 seconds before doing anything, this can help you get that information more effectively and more like you would when you're manually scraping that data. So that's one trick. I like to do this on the page that it's maybe loading to. So if this page 2 was taking a while to load, then I could go into my properties and add wait for Ajax. And then I could also check this box. Well, let's crank up our wait seconds to 25 seconds. I could check this box that says begin processing this page as soon as actions find their items. So even though I have these wait seconds and this load set there by default where it's making it run a little bit slower, I can also instruct it to say if you find what you're looking for, just get it. Those are some ways to troubleshoot your agents when after you've tried reassigning the location as well as redefining what you need. One of the capabilities of our Internet Explorer version was that we were able to right-click and copy an element right from the DOM and use that as a piece of information or have that be selected as your capture text. That is a feature that is not available here, but there are some other features that we can use when we are interacting with our dev tools. I'm going to right-click and inspect this phone number and say I want to collect this exact piece of data. I can right-click, click copy, and I can copy the XPath, which is the path it took to get to that phone number. Then on my XPath of that item, I can replace it with the XPath that was written by Mozenda. These are not as reliable as writing your own custom XPath, but it is available for you to play around with to see if that will work for you. We can even select outer HTML, and there are some capabilities where you can interact similar as the DOM, but not with the same functionality that we had before. So to review, we've gone over a lot today. And one thing I wanted to touch on as well is when it comes to capturing, if you want to capture more information about a product, we talked about capturing photos with a product, but we had a question come in about how to capture models that have a color section. And that is a capability. I'm going to pull up this website here. This is one of our training sites that we use. Oh, let me pull it over, because colors can be a handful. So here in this web page, I want to make sure that I select not only the product, but I want to make sure if there's any colors listed for highlighters, that I get those as well. This could be for shoes. Additionally, something to do to make sure that you are getting the right information is just doing a capture text. And if you need an image collected, then download the image of the color that you're looking for as well. Let's see, these ones are not as friendly, so we'll do vans. And while I'm pulling this up, so it'll just take some practice. The more that you become familiar with your website and how those shoes are or the colors are, the better you'll become. So I want to view all colors here, and if it was in a drop down of a color list, I could capture this as a list. Additionally, I could capture, see how there's those words are hovered over the top of each one of those images. If I inspect this in the HTML, it's likely that I will find those colors, that name listed here. So I'm going to go to the button, and it looks like it does have the color listed right there for Golden Oak. So when it is a little bit behind the scenes, tomorrow when we talk about XPath, we'll talk about how you can select to view the text of an item that you have selected versus and write a path there to say look for anything that says color and be able to select that information. Great question. Feel free to chat in anytime during our presentation. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in to our webinar today. We've covered a lot of information over a short amount of time. We've learned about the different components of websites and how they relate to agent building. Tomorrow we're going to go more in depth on HTML and how that relates to writing custom XPaths to filter the information as quickly as possible. Additionally, we have talked about ways to troubleshoot by reassigning a location or adding an alternate location. When we are having troubles with our agent, always check inside the web console to identify if there is an error listed in the web console. By adding wait seconds, we can create a more human-like interaction as we're data scraping and help get that data as we would naturally. And that is another troubleshooting technique. Awesome. I appreciate you guys all joining in. This will be sent out to all of you and those who are in attendance and those who are not. We have webinars later this week. Please make sure to register so that you can receive a copy of the video training as well. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you.